Hello, BookTube. Sorry I didn't do a comic book video yesterday. There were things that I saw in the advanced listings online that tempted me to go to the comic shop. A couple of reprint volumes that looked kind of interesting. Uh, but it was threatening rain, and it was threatening thunder, and I was loaded down with 1,000 pounds of books, and my comic shop isn't exactly on my way. I need to have an inducement to go there. And those reprint volumes just didn't do it. They just didn't do it for me. Uh, there was one thing that was advertised as being at the comic shop that I would probably have gone to get just because it's a gimmick and I'm a gimmick monkey. But my surly houseboy informed me that in a rare move, it was also being made same day available at bookstores instead of the usual week to 2 week delay between a thing appearing in a specialty comic shop and a thing appearing in bookstores. I don't know why that delay exists. I can't help but think it's part of the demise of the comic book industry that they're not available. You can't get them anywhere. But that thing is Marvel Comics number 1000. And since I knew now that it was going to be at my local Barnes & Noble, and since my local Barnes & Noble is on my route, and since I get an employee discount at my local Barnes & Noble, I of course went and got it there instead of going to the comic shop. And this is Marvel Comics' sort of conceit that if they had continued publishing from Marvel Comics number 1 80 years ago, they would be at Marvel Comics 1000 by now. No one knows if that's true. That's probably not true. But this is meant to be two things. A celebration of Marvel Comics in the course of 80 years. Of course, it's a big 80-year anniversary. And the beginning of a kind of plot. There's a kind of storyline that runs throughout part of this square-bound comic. This was $10, I think, $10 on the stand. Marvel tried a few different things here. There are two basic narrative lines that run throughout here. One is, and they don't appear to be connected. One is characters being asked by an interviewer, why do you do what you do? What's your motivation as a superhero? And the other is a storyline involving a black starry mask that doesn't give its wearer superpowers. It just, as the comic book says, it just evens the playing field. It makes them the equal of whoever they're fighting. And we follow, in the course of this comic book, we follow the history of that mask through all its different owners from the time of King Arthur all the way to the present day, when it gets a new owner on the last page of this issue. And that, I guess, will springboard into a new story. And the approach that Marvel took here was to commission lots of different writers and lots of different artists, and each one only gets one page to tell their story. This is one creative team, this is another. And it goes throughout. Now, there are many writers that duplicate, and sometimes an artist does, but mostly it's just a collage of different creators. And I have been a fan of Marvel Comics for a long time, since its relaunch in the 60s. I've read a lot of Marvel Comics. I've enjoyed a lot of Marvel Comics, so of course, if this is a volume designed to celebrate Marvel Comics, I'm going to get it, and I'm going to read it, and I wish I could add that I'm going to like it, but I did not. This comic fails in a lot of ways. And a lot of the ways that it fails aren't creative decisions. A lot of the ways that it fails strike me as just incompetence. Just the editorial team, there's a vast editorial team listed in this thing, just not knowing what it's about. And that was, one note here or there was a little annoying. You know, I lost count of how many times immigration comes up in this thing, because all of comic book creators hate the current political climate in the United States. As well they should, but you should keep it out of your comics, which are, aimed at least partially at people who voted the other way, and also partially at children. I lost count of how many times immigration comes up in this issue, including one point, absurdly, Thor is called the world's greatest illegal immigrant. And I lost count of how many times in this issue the history of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is preferred over the history of Marvel Comics, which this is designed to commemorate. Like, for instance, there's a scene set when Captain America is a kid in New York City in the 1930s, and he knows Bucky Barnes. That is Marvel Cinematic Universe history. That is not Marvel Comics history. In Marvel Comics, Steve Rogers, Captain America, meets Bucky Barnes when he joins the army. The page given over to Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel, is a page from the movie. And yet, even though this, there are many, many other examples, but even though this is slavish to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, rather than to the history of Marvel Comics that's designed to celebrate, it still gets that cinematic universe wrong. I mean, another example of preferring the cinematic universe over the Marvel universe is that happens on the same page as something that I want to show you. There's a page here written by J. Michael Straczynski and drawn by the great Ed McGuinness, in which various characters are asked what they regret, and they list what they regret. And one of the characters who is Mantis from the Guardians of the Galaxy movie, the green Mantis with insect antennas. And she says, not coming up with a better name than Mantis because I'm pretty sure I could have done better, especially after I learned about their mating habits, which may explain why dating has been so difficult. But Marvel Comics, not the Marvel superhero universe in the movies, but Marvel Comics had a different character called Mantis. And anyway, on this page, the same page with regrets, all throughout the issue, there's a block on every page, a little red dot that has a year. We follow Marvel Comics through the years, and in each year we're given a landmark of something that happened that year. Once the year coincides with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's all about the movies, as if nothing happened in Marvel Comics during those years. And when we get to that block for the page, what do you regret? We learn that even in a comic that is preferring Marvel Cinematic Universe history over Marvel Comics history, the writers and editors still get the cinematic history wrong. The blurb for 2017 is, Stan Lee appears as the Watcher in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. That does not happen. Stan Lee has a wonderful cameo in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, but it's not as a Watcher. All you have to do is look at the cameo to know that. The one thing that you shouldn't do if you're going to write that, the one reason why you would write a blurb like that is that you haven't even bothered to watch a Marvel Comics movie. All you've watched is videos on YouTube about it. But the clip in the movie is Stan Lee as a spacefarer talking to Watchers. He is not a Watcher in that clip. So you even get that wrong. And that conflation of the Marvel History Universe with Marvel Cinematic Universe is bad enough. But also the conception of the Eternity Mask, the black, shiny mask that is the MacGuffin of the plot, also gets more and more disturbing as it goes along. Because at one point we're told that its ability to give its wearer a level playing field against their opponents made it a great thing because it made peasants the equals of the knights of King Arthur's Round Table. I read that the first time it appears in this issue, and I thought, that's an odd way to put it. And then it keeps coming up. So that by the end of the issue, I'm supposed to understand that King Arthur's Knights of the Round Table are the bad guys. That, in fact, superior ability or skill is bad. That this Infinity Mask is designed to do away with that. And that is a bad thing. And by the end of the issue, I was saying, almost out loud, well, aren't all superheroes icons of superior ability or skill? Didn't they work hard and sacrifice hard to get that? And you're saying this mask is great because it eliminates that? Anyway, in addition to the problems with the historical callbacks, which are half of which are wrong, and the plot itself of this equalizing mask, there was also a patina. There was a layering over this thing of either incompetence or political signaling, and either way it was infuriating. If this thing is meant to be a celebration, as it says on the cover, of 80 years of Marvel history, Marvel history started with Marvel Comics #1, when it was Timely that was producing these things, and the Human Torch is on the cover of Marvel Comics #1, and Marvel Comics history, early history, is the architects of it, the three icons of it, are Captain America, the Submariner, and the Human Torch. And the Human Torch gets the opening panel in here, and he also gets a mention on the last page. The Submariner, I think, is never mentioned, or he's mentioned 3 times. He shows up a couple of times. He doesn't have a segment of his own. anywhere in this. No one ever asks him why he does what he does. They ask the Punisher while he's napalming a car. That's supposed to be believable, but you can't ask. Anyway, the political signaling that I mean has to do with the current management of Marvel Comics, the actual comic book line, that some of you may have seen. If you follow Comicsgate on YouTube, then you'll know all about this. And Comicsgate certainly has its own share of house sins. But the current creator crop at Marvel, they don't seem to care much about the comic book history of the characters that they have inherited, that they are shepherding for a new generation. And they also want to have their political way. The thing that gave birth to Comicsgate in the first place is that there are a large number of creators at Marvel Comics who think that there are good fans and bad fans. There are some fans who are just bad people. They're on the wrong side of history. And not only can you say openly on social media, in public, and at conventions that your comics aren't for them, that you don't want them to buy or read your comics, something for which any Marvel creator would have been summarily fired for any of the 70 years of its history before the present day, but also to start targeting those kinds of wrong side of history fans, to start mocking them in your comics, to start creating comics about them, like you don't have anything better to do. And you can see that political signaling on the cover of this issue. This is the Alex Ross cover of a comic designed to celebrate the history of Marvel Comics. And here you have a comic book being opened, light is shining up, and you have all sorts of Marvel characters, a cover entirely full of iconic Marvel characters. Or do you? You see Thanos with the Infinity Gauntlet. You see the Chris Claremont design of some classic, of some relaunched, all-new, all-different X-Men, Colossus and Nightcrawler and Storm. You see in the background Thor and Daredevil and Iron Man. You see Spider-Man carrying the burglar from his first appearance in Amazing Stories. And you also see a few other characters, like, for instance, this character. That is Squirrel Girl, who was created by Steve Ditko, but who has had her series canceled a number of times, not just once, but multiple times in the last 3 years for low sales. And right above her is Spider-Gwen. And this is a character who has had her series canceled multiple times in the last 3 years for low sales. Right next to her is Ms. Marvel, a teenage Muslim girl who has the power to freakishly enlarge random parts of her body at any given time. And in the last few years, she has had her series at Marvel Comics canceled multiple times for low sales. And up at the top here, partially obscuring Marvel Comics itself, that mohawked man is the Carol Danvers version of Captain Marvel, who has had her series at Marvel Comics canceled 9 times in the last 3 years for low sales. These characters have had their series canceled for only one reason. They are not popular. They are not popular. Right? They have not caught on with fans. If they had, their series wouldn't be canceled for low sales. Instead, their series have all been canceled for low sales. Now, that in itself is not a mark of eternal shame. Plenty of characters on this cover have had series canceled for low sales. The X-Men at one point, the Hulk at one point. You retire the character, you change the creative team, you change the approach, you put them as a guest star in other comics, you give them a backup feature in comics, you build up an audience for them, and you try your luck at a comic, at giving them their own comic again. Except for these 4 characters, who failed multiple times to find an audience and who are brought back exactly the same as the iteration that failed. You cannot help but read into that decision on the editorial part of Marvel Comics that they know better than you. That you'll eat your spinach and you'll like it. That we know that these characters are on the right side of history, and we're just going to keep presenting them to you without ever changing them, even though we know you don't like them this way, until you either die of old age or learn better. Which is unbelievably arrogant. That is an unbelievably arrogant position that Marvel has never taken before. And you might think, well, okay, it's Marvel, it's Alex Ross, it's whoever editorial team put this together. They can put whatever characters they want on the cover. And it's a pretty crowded cover. You can't fit everybody. But on the cover of Marvel Comics number 1000, which is celebrating 80 years of Marvel Comics, you can fit Squirrel Girl, but you can't fit the Human Torch. You can fit Spider-Gwen, but you can't fit the Submariner. You can fit Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel, and Ms. Marvel, but you can't fit... What was the name again? Oh, yeah. The Fantastic Four. The Fantastic Four. The team that Jack Kirby and Stan Lee used in order to relaunch Marvel Comics and make it the foremost brand of superhero comics in the world. They're not on the cover of Marvel Comics number 1000. Squirrel Girl is. Spider-Gwen is. Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel is. Ms. Marvel is. Characters that have repeatedly failed to find an audience. Characters who are not popular are on the cover of Marvel Comics number 1000. Not just one of them, but all of them are. But the Fantastic Four is not. The Human Torch is not. The Submariner is not. That was just the cover. And the issue went on from there to just bother the daylights. I mean, it was great to see a lot of these artists, even for only one page. Walter Simonson is in here. Steve Root is in here a couple of times. But overall, the thing just irritated me. Just from start to finish, irritated me. I guess there's a story being set up with this Eternity Mask, but why do I want to watch that story? Why do I want to know what it is if the enemy, the bad guy in that story, is not some rival claimant to this mask, or some person who wants to destroy it? The enemy of this mask, that is the MacGuffin throughout this issue, is excellence. The enemy of the mask is excellence. The wearer of the mask cannot be surpassed by someone else, no matter how much that someone else has worked at it. The mask levels the playing field. And the more I read that, the less I liked that idea. I mean, it's surely no coincidence that the only parallel to that in comic books is in DC Comics. And that parallel is a villain. Nemesis Kid has the superpower of equaling any person he's fighting. And he is rightfully portrayed as a villain because he didn't earn anything, because he didn't earn his powers. So why would I want to follow this plotline of this great leveler mask, this great #resist mask? Why would I want to follow that? Not that I would ever be strongly tempted. Marvel Comics on the weekly basis really doesn't do much for me. But I admit, I'm a nostalgia junkie, and I've been reading Marvel Comics since Fantastic Four started. So I was hoping that this was going to be a legitimate celebration of Marvel Comics, and it's not. It's not. Instead, it botches that function at every turn. And I don't think it does so unknowingly. I think this is laying the groundwork. This is the celebration that Marvel creators are making of the Marvel Comics they think they have. They think this is Marvel Comics, and that's what they're celebrating with. Anyway, so I guess what I'm saying is this is going to be in your bookstores. In addition to your comic shop, this is going to be in your bookstores, at least in every Barnes & Noble in the country, up front by the registers as an impulse buy. And if you're a comic book fan and you see all the bright covers, you might be tempted, and I guess what I'm saying is don't bother. Don't do it. It's going to the parts of it that don't confuse you are going to anger you. And most of what's in here is not going to be recognizable to you as a celebration of Marvel Comics history. You'll recognize a lot of details from the movies, sure, but what good is that? What this is about? Anyway, I'll wrap up this rant for now, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.